Hello, I'm Ben Keaton, and this is Dirty Stupid Wisdom. It's lovely to have you along. Lately when friends have been saying to me, "How are you?" I've been prone to respond, "Well, it's been a bit bumpy." Now, of course, that's not the normal response. Normally, you're supposed to say, "I'm fine, how are you?" And then they get the chance to bore your arse off. This way, I get in first. But then, it has been a bit bumpy. Two Dead Dogs and a Crushed Hat by Ben Keaton. It was quite a year. Looking back, it was like the last act of Hamlet. Bodies everywhere. At the time, I thought it was normal. Just the natural series of endings and beginnings. Just life, really. But most emotional catastrophes have the decency to spread themselves out. Crushed together over 12 months. Seems unnecessary. My daughter, who I call the girl, in anticipation of losing my marbles, was heading into A-levels. She had adopted the catch-up at the 11th hour strategy of learning. It fitted in well with her TikTok schedule of makeup tutorial viewing that seemed to take precedent over everything else. She was finding the end of her education traumatic. It wasn't that she loved the routine of school, but there really wasn't anything to replace it. We, who I call her parents, suggested university, since the system leaned generously towards her as a victim of the pandemic disruption. At this time, universities would admit a Labrador, if it could wear a mortarboard. The bar was low, and we were all for it. So, the girl packed her bags and shuffled off to Kent University to study forensic science. Her choice, based on how easy it looked on CSI. She bounced away happily, never looked back. I was distraught. That was the second grieving of the year. As soon as the puppy appeared, I loved it. He found a Vanessa Mae CD on the floor and took a shit on it. A perfectly coiled poo delivered with the accuracy of an Exocet missile. But it wasn't just the accuracy, it was the critical damnation that won me over. It was a crap album. Something even a 13-week-old puppy couldn't condone. Why does anyone try to sex up classical music? Just don't. You're convincing no one. The dog grew up to be sweet, kind, and above all, patient. When I got bored of entertaining him, he learned to throw a stick for himself to fetch. He'd flick it out of the side of his mouth and then feign delight as he discovered it flying through the air. What a bad owner I am that I wouldn't even throw a stick for a dog. But then I did pick up his shit for 13 years, so I feel all his hardships balanced out. I would test his love to the max. First, holding a dog treat in my mouth for him to take. Then, clenching it in the crack of my trousered arse to see what would happen. The kids howling in anticipation of a bite. Thing is, a dog is a dog. A treat is a treat, and a Labrador will eat anything, anywhere, even up his owner's arse. Pepper was not a dog to defend you. Not physically. I couldn't imagine him fighting off a Staffordshire Bull Terrier if I was in danger. Once, when I took him for a walk in the snow, he simply stopped and stared at me with begging eyes, his whole body shivering to a blur. I had to pick him up and carry him home, past other dogs that seemed oblivious to the chill. He looked ashamed of himself. They looked envious. Since he hadn't met other dogs socially, he never learned the masculine way to pee. So he'd squat like a bitch. If we were on a walk, I'd see other dogs do a double take when he went to mark his journey. Perhaps it was a gender issue, and they were ahead of their time. I don't know. There were many times my children found their own way and set themselves apart from the others. I never sought to correct them, seeing their logic as part of their fabric. So Pepper squatted to pee, threw himself a stick, and was carried home in cold weather. Every failing made me love him more. I think I must be one of the few owners who's seen inside his dog. I booked him in to have his bollocks tied. Paul, the vet, was a neighbour. I asked him if I could watch the procedure. He was so taken off guard, he said, yes. So I turned up at the appointed time to find Pepper unconscious on the operating table, his stomach open from his ribs to his cock, and all his organs arranged around the open wound like Yorkshire puddings around a roast chicken. Paul looked anxious. I can't find the blah blah, he said, his hand rooting deep inside the cavity. It was fascinating. All the organs were tethered to their origin. It was clean and dry and not a bit bloody. Pepper had a tube in his mouth, and his long pink tongue dangled onto the table. He was happy in his drug-induced coma. The blah blah was found, and the organs put back, as you would put loose fruit into a shopping basket. Don't they have to go back in a particular order? I said. No, you said. It'll all sort itself out as he runs about. The stitching up was fascinating too. It was brutal. 2 lumps of flesh roughly tied together with a needle you'd knit a sweater with. The result was a fat sausage of raw flesh about a foot long. It was ugly. Frankenstein would reject it. But Paul was right, of course. It all sorted itself out. Even the scar disappeared. So Pepper never had sex. Not once. I can say that with all the confidence of a Puritan father. I like to think I protected his innocence. But in reality, to have the bliss of intercourse stolen from you is, well, monstrous. Yeah. Go me. He got old, went blind, incontinent and lame, but I couldn't live without him. I watched his suffering. I just couldn't face that awful journey to Paul. So I kept him longer than I should. It was selfish. Each morning I'd find him lying in his own piss, waiting for me. I'd carry him to the garden, lie him on the grass and wash him with soapy water. He'd sniff at the lawn he once raced over, warm himself in the sun, unable to move without me. So, I took him to Paul. The girl kept us company. Pepper was in the boot, lying on his blanket. Paul mustered a team and they carried him inside. I burst out crying, and Pepper looked back at me. Concerned, I suppose, wondering why I was distressed. I never forgot that look. A concern born of friendship. He went to sleep, and I buried him in the garden wrapped in my son's baby blanket. We stood around the shallow grave beneath the tree, placed a ball on the fresh-turned earth. A little joke, you see. A ball, just out of reach. On to happier things. The boy is a runaway success. He built up an online business and moved into his own flat. I did everything I could to thwart his leaving. I ensured he couldn't cook, drive, or succeed with women. I thought I'd done pretty well, but it turns out that they don't need those skills. You can buy takeaway, work from home, and swipe left. I helped him move in, helped him decorate, stocked him up on food, everything, to make myself indispensable, but he finally walked me to the door and said, "Bye, Dad." I waited outside in the hope I'd hear sobbing, but it didn't happen. Instead, he paid Post Malone at full whack. Sounded fun. I had a beer on the way home. My answer to all traumas. The second dog also went blind and incontinent in the same year. Perhaps that's why the kids left. They could see their fate predicted for them if they stayed. Having murdered one dog, I was immune to the emotion this time round. I rejected the offer to stay and took a walk around the block. Visited a charity shop, if I remember correctly. 20 minutes later, I carried him home. It wasn't until his head slipped from my arm, that awful weight of lifelessness, that my heart snapped. Another stain on the white sheet of memory. When we didn't get on, I'd find my much-loved hat crushed by her angry hand. It was funny and sinister in equal measure, like the bitter taste of her cooking, which worried me as I'd read a lot of Agatha Christie. We lost trust in each other. The felt crown of my hat would be caved in with rage imprinted on it. So I stopped wearing the hat. It became an emblem of my failure, a bad aesthetic, unsavable, like us. Now I look back on that year and it seems funny. If I make it so, if I ignore the grief, or at least accept that it was awful, and despite all, I come out the other side. 2 dogs and a crushed hat, lighter.
I don't know what you're expecting from me. Honest to God, really. I explained this to you a million times.
Mid-Jump by Ben Keaton.
Listen, we can't keep doing this anymore. We just can't keep going over the same. There's no point.
Let's do nothing for a while. Let's just sit here and pause. Let's just listen to the cars pass. Hear the rain splash from the road. Let's just sit in silence together in the bedroom. You in yours, me in mine. I'll imagine you propped up against the pillow, tea on the side table, the unread book, the picture facing you, unchanging. And for now, nothing will happen. The world has stopped. The child, mid-air. The child, mid-jump, held in air, alive and still, excited, happy, forever and ever and ever, as long as we wait.
Thank you for joining me on Dirty Stupid Wisdom. It's been a great pleasure to do these agonies. Revelation, man, it costs, doesn't it? In some way. Anyway, listen, I hope you've enjoyed this. And if you're enjoying the series, do please subscribe. If you go to dirtystupidwisdom.com, there's a subscribe button there. And then you'll be added to the mailing list. And twice a month, you get a little reminder of what's coming up. And that would be fantastic. And if you left a comment, that would be amazing, because then I'd know you're out there and what you think about these things. Okay. See you next time.